Do you know anyone who wants a little girl? Donovan Reese heard those words and stopped walking. He was 3 steps from the elevator, jacket still damp from the rain, a burner phone in one hand and a keycard in the other. The Callaway Grand was 42 floors of marble and money, and he owned the top 6. He had walked these halls 1,000 times without looking down. But he looked down now. She was standing near the concierge desk, half hidden behind a potted palm that was taller than she was. Maybe 5 years old, maybe 6. Hard to tell because she was small in the way that children are small when they haven't been fed enough. Her dress had been white once, her shoes didn't match. One white sneaker, one navy one, and she was holding a stuffed elephant by the trunk, the kind that gets loved so hard the eyes go crooked. She wasn't crying, that was the thing. She was just standing there with her chin up, asking the concierge the way another person might ask for directions. The concierge, a young man named Brett, who Donovan paid very well to handle problems quietly, looked like he was handling a live grenade. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," Brett said. Because I can be quiet," the girl said. "I'm really good at being quiet, and I don't eat very much." Donovan didn't move for a moment. Around him the lobby continued. A bellman with a luggage cart, 2 businessmen in expensive suits, a woman on her phone. None of them were looking at the child. That happened sometimes, he'd noticed. People looked away from things that required something of them. He walked over. He was not a small man. 6'2", broad through the shoulders, the kind of build that came from 30 years of moving through the world, like something could come at him from any direction. He had a scar along his jaw that he'd stopped explaining 20 years ago, and 2 knuckles on his right hand that hadn't set straight after a job in Newark that went sideways. He was not, by any measure, the person a lost child should approach. He crouched down anyway, eye level. He'd learned that from somewhere, maybe from watching people get it wrong. "Hey," he said. She looked at him. Her eyes were brown and very still. "Who brought you here tonight?" "My Aunt Ruth," she said. "She said to wait." "How long ago?" The girl looked at the door, then back at him. "I don't have a watch." Donovan looked up at Brett, who shook his head slightly. He'd already checked. No woman matching that description had been in the lobby in the last 2 hours. "What's your name?" Donovan asked. "Maeve," she said. "What's yours?" He hadn't been asked that by someone her size in a very long time. "Donovan," she considered this seriously. "That's a last name." "Yeah," he said. "It is." She shifted her elephant from one arm to the other. "Do you know anyone?" she asked again. And this time her voice was very careful, the way voices get when someone is working hard to keep them steady. "Who wants a little girl? Because Ruth said she couldn't keep me anymore, and she left, and I've been waiting, and I think—" She stopped, started again. "I think she's not coming back." He didn't have a protocol for this. Donovan Reese had protocols for most things. He had people who handled his properties, people who handled his disputes, people who handled the kind of situations that didn't get written down. He had run 3 cities' worth of complicated arrangements for going on 15 years, and in all that time he had not once needed to know what to do with a small girl in mismatched shoes who was trying very hard not to cry in his hotel lobby. He called his operations manager, a woman named Greer, who had seen him through worse than this and who picked up on the second ring. "I need you down here," he said. "What happened?" "Nothing happened. I need—" He lowered his voice and stepped away from the concierge desk. Maeve was still standing where he'd left her, watching him with those steady brown eyes. "There's a child. I need someone who knows what to do." A pause. "What kind of child?" "The small kind, maybe 5 or 6. Abandoned, I think. No adult." Another pause longer. "Donovan, I know, you can't just— I'm not doing anything. I need someone to handle it." Greer arrived in 11 minutes. She was 53, gray at the temples, and she had the particular competence of someone who had raised 3 children while simultaneously managing a man like Donovan. She looked at Maeve. Maeve looked back. "Hi," Greer said. "Hi," said Maeve. "I'm going to get you something to eat, okay? Are you hungry?" Maeve's eyes flicked to Donovan, then back. "I'm not supposed to go places with strangers. That's a good rule," Greer said. She didn't miss a beat. "You can stay right here where you can see everything. I'll have them bring it to you." Maeve thought about this. "Okay." While Greer sat with her, Donovan stepped back and made calls. The name Ruth wasn't much. The girl's full name, when he finally got it from her, was Maeve Calloway. And the address she recited from memory, carefully like she'd been made to practice it, was an apartment in Millway, 40 minutes east. He sent 2 of his people. What they found there took 20 minutes to report back and 2 sentences to summarize. The apartment had been emptied, not cleaned out, emptied. Furniture still there, dishes still there, but all the clothes and cash and anything personal, gone. Ruth Calloway, whoever she was, had packed what mattered to her and left before the sun went down. She had not taken the child. The child fell asleep on the lobby couch. At 9:47, the elephant tucked under her chin, one shoe on and one shoe off. She had eaten a bowl of soup and half a grilled cheese sandwich, and she had answered every question Greer asked her in that same careful, measured way, like someone who had learned early that words could get you in trouble if you used them wrong. Donovan stood at the far end of the lobby and watched her sleep. His head of security, a man called Pax, appeared at his shoulder. Pax had been with him for 11 years and communicated mostly in short sentences and raised eyebrows. "Social services," Pax said. "I know." Pax was quiet for a moment. Then, "She asked me if I was the scary one." Donovan looked at him. Pax was 6'4", 250 pounds, bald, with a neck tattoo of a compass rose and a face that had stopped traffic in 3 different countries. "What did you say?" Donovan asked. "I said no, I said you were." A pause. "She said that made sense because you looked like you were trying not to be." Donovan didn't say anything. "She's smart," Pax said. "Yeah," Donovan said. "She is." The social worker who came was tired in the way that people get tired when the job is too big and the resources are too small. She was polite and efficient, and she explained that Maeve would need to go into emergency placement tonight, that the county had a list, that there were families. Maeve woke up when the woman sat down next to her. She looked at her. Then she looked at Donovan, who was standing a careful distance away, hands in his pockets, saying nothing. "Are you going to come?" Maeve asked him. "I can't," he said. She looked at him for a long time. Kids her age weren't supposed to understand the full weight of things, but she had been practicing clearly at understanding things she wasn't supposed to. "Okay," she said. She picked up her elephant. She stood up very straight, the way small people stand when they are trying not to take up less space than they already do. She walked out with the social worker without looking back. Donovan stood in his lobby and said nothing. Around him, the Calloway Grand continued its quiet, expensive operation. The marble floors were very clean. The lights were warm. He went upstairs. He didn't sleep. Her file came to him at 6 in the morning. He hadn't asked for it. Greer had pulled it anyway, which was something he would address later. The fact that she'd known he'd want it. The fact that she'd been right. Maeve Calloway, 6 years old. Mother deceased 2 years prior, father unknown. She'd been in her Aunt Ruth's care since then. No abuse reported, no intervention. Just a woman who had apparently decided one morning that the arrangement wasn't working for her anymore and had made plans accordingly. There were details in the file that Donovan read once and did not read again. The kind of details that explained the careful way she talked, the practiced stillness, the way she'd catalogued her own qualities for the concierge, like she was making a case for herself. "I can be quiet. I don't eat very much." He set the file down. He looked out the window at the city. This was not his business. He was not equipped for this. He was a man who dealt in property and leverage and, when necessary, the kind of enforcement that didn't make it into court records. He had a penthouse and a driver and a network of people who feared and respected him in roughly equal measure. He was not a guardian. He was not even close. He called the county office at 8 o'clock when they opened. He asked about emergency placement. He asked about process. He was transferred 3 times. He called his lawyer at 8:40. His lawyer, a man named Shaughnessy who had kept Donovan out of federal court on 2 occasions and who charged accordingly, listened to everything and then said, "You understand what you're describing?" "Yes." "You understand your background will complicate?" "Yes." "And your business interests?" Shaughnessy. "Right," the lawyer said. "I'll make some calls." The placement home was in a suburb called Fenwick, 45 minutes from the city, on a street where all the houses looked like they'd been built by the same person in the same year and painted slightly different shades of beige. The family was named Burrell. They had 2 other foster children already and a living room that smelled like artificial vanilla. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had no legal standing, no right to visit, no reason Shaughnessy had been able to manufacture fast enough. He drove there anyway and sat in his car across the street for a while. He saw her once through a window, just the back of her head, those dark curls, sitting at a table. She had a crayon in her hand. He drove back. Shaughnessy called on a Thursday. "Background check is going to be an issue," he said. "You have a lot of history, I know. We can work around some of it. The property holdings, the donations, the clean record on paper, there's a version of this that looks better than it is." A pause. "But it's going to take time and they're going to look hard." "Let them look." Silence. "Then, this is really what you want to do?" It wasn't a question, exactly. More like Shaughnessy checking the temperature of something, the way he did when he needed to know whether Donovan was making a decision or having a reaction. "Yes," Donovan said. Shaughnessy exhaled. "Give me 3 weeks." In the meantime, Greer began to make changes to the penthouse that Donovan did not authorize and did not stop. A bookshelf appeared in what had been a spare room, then a small desk, then curtains, yellow, which was not a color that had ever existed in Donovan's home before. Greer said nothing about any of it. She just left the receipts on his desk where he could see them. Pax sourced a booster seat, which he installed in the back of the car with the focus of a man defusing ordnance. The chef, a taciturn man named Flores who had cooked for Donovan for 6 years and communicated primarily through food, produced a handwritten list of simple meals and left it on the kitchen counter. Scrambled eggs, grilled cheese, mac and cheese, chicken soup. He had added small stars next to the ones he considered most reliably popular with children, based on, apparently, his own 4 kids and whatever research he had conducted independently. Donovan looked at the list for a long time. He had built an organization out of nothing, starting at 22 with a territory in South Millway, and a reputation for keeping his word even when it cost him. He had expanded, consolidated, made himself indispensable to people who didn't like needing anyone. He had done things in his life that he could not undo and things that he was still, some nights, paying for in ways that didn't show on any balance sheet. He had never had anything that depended on him like this. The room was ready in 10 days. Greer had added a lamp shaped like a moon. The home visit was conducted by a woman named Aldridge, county assessor, mid-40s, sensible shoes, the specific kind of careful neutrality that came from doing a hard job with real stakes. She walked through every room. She asked questions. She noted things on a clipboard in handwriting that Donovan could not read upside down. When they sat at the kitchen table, she said, "I have to be honest with you, Mr. Reese. Your file raises concerns. I know. The property's the legal history. Nothing prosecuted but the pattern of association. I understand. There are other applicants for Maeve. Families. 2-parent households with Miss Aldridge," he said. She asked a hotel lobby if anyone wanted her. She made a list of reasons why she'd be easy to take care of. "She's 6 years old," he stopped. Started again, more carefully. "I'm not telling you I'm the right choice. I'm telling you I'll be the committed one. Those aren't always the same thing, and I know which one matters more." Aldridge looked at him for a long time. She made a note on her clipboard. The supervised visits started the following Tuesday. The first visit, Maeve arrived at the penthouse with a caseworker and stood in the entryway looking at everything with the expression of someone cataloging exits. She was wearing a green jacket that was too big for her and carrying the elephant. "This is your place?" She said. "Yes." She looked up. The ceilings were 14 feet and there was a chandelier. "It's tall," she said. "Yes, I like it." She walked in carefully, the way she had walked across the marble lobby the first night, like she wasn't sure whether touching the floors was allowed. Donovan didn't tell her it was fine. He waited to see what she'd do. She made it to the kitchen and found the list Flores had left on the counter, still sitting there, unremoved, starred items and all. She read it very seriously. "Did you write this?" "No. My chef did. You have a chef?" "Yes." She looked at him. "For just you?" "Yes." She seemed to find this slightly ridiculous, which he found reasonable. "Can I have mac and cheese?" "Yes." Flores produced it in 11 minutes. Maeve ate 3/4 of it and fed small bites of the remainder to the elephant, who she had named Gerald too, because there had apparently been a Gerald one at some point who she did not elaborate on. After lunch, the caseworker sat in the living room with paperwork, and Maeve drifted toward the spare room, the one with the yellow curtains. She stood in the doorway for a moment without going in. "Is this for me?" she asked. "If you want it to be," Donovan said. She went in. She looked at the desk. She looked at the bookshelf. She touched the lamp shaped like a moon, very gently with one finger. She didn't say anything, but she didn't leave either. She sat down on the floor in front of the bookshelf and pulled out a picture book and opened it in her lap. And Donovan leaned against the doorframe and watched her read. The visits became routine over 6 weeks. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 3 hours each. Maeve learned where everything was. She developed opinions about Flores's cooking. The grilled cheese was better than the mac and cheese. The scrambled eggs were, and she used this word with total seriousness, exemplary. She taught Pax a card game that she claimed to have invented herself, and which had rules that changed every hand in ways she described as advanced strategy. Pax lost every time with the dignity of a man accepting a fair outcome. She did not in 6 weeks ask Donovan a single personal question. He noticed. He had been watched carefully before. It came with the territory, but never like this. She was studying him the way you study something you're not sure you can trust yet, logging data, making no conclusions. He understood it. He didn't push. On the 7th Tuesday, she arrived with a drawing she'd made at the Burrell house. She had drawn a building, recognizably tall, with a chandelier visible through the window, and 2 figures out front, one large and one small. The large one had, she explained, a scar on its face which she had rendered as a zigzag line. "That's you," she said, pointing at the large figure. "I gathered, and that's me." She pointed at the small one. Gerald, too, was tucked under the small figure's arm. "I made your eyes green because I wasn't sure what color they were." "They're gray." She looked at him, checking. "Kind of," she said diplomatically. He kept the drawing. He did not make a point of it. He simply set it on the kitchen counter when she wasn't looking. Greer found it later and said nothing, which meant she filed it away in the category of things that confirmed what she already knew. The legal issue arrived in week 8. A man named Collier, mid-level, legacy operation, someone Donovan had edged out of a waterfront contract 3 years prior, decided that the Foster situation was the kind of leverage that might be useful. He made contact through intermediaries. The message was simple: back out of the Fenwick Port deal, or he'd make sure the right people looked carefully at the right files. Donovan listened to the whole message twice. He called Shaughnessy. He called Pax. He made 3 other calls that he made from his private office with the door closed. Then he sat for a long time at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and the drawing of the tall building and the 2 figures. He did not touch the port deal. He had Pax deliver a message to Collier. Not a threat, technically, because Donovan had stopped making threats 15 years ago when he realized that people who needed to threaten hadn't finished preparing. It was more of an accounting. What Collier stood to lose, laid out item by item, with the particular patience of someone who had done this long enough to know the math always mattered more than the emotion. Collier withdrew. It took 4 days and cost Donovan one favor he'd been holding for something else. He didn't tell Greer about it. He didn't tell Pax he'd made the choice he had, because Pax already knew. And he didn't tell Maeve because she was 6, and because some things you protect people from, especially small people who had already had too much of the world thrown at them before they were old enough to carry it. He just showed up the following Tuesday. Maeve noticed that he looked tired. She didn't say so directly. She said, "You should drink more water. My teacher says that's why adults look weird sometimes." "I'll take that under advisement," Donovan said. She climbed up onto the kitchen stool and watched him make coffee. She had recently appointed herself supervisor of this process, based on, as far as he could tell, pure interest rather than any expertise. "Did something bad happen?" she asked. "Something got handled," he said. She thought about this. "Is it handled all the way?" "Yes." "Okay," she said, and went back to watching him make coffee. It was such a complete response that it stopped him for a second. No follow-up, no pressing, just okay and a return to what they were doing. He had met men with 30 years in serious business who couldn't manage